Sadat Zaga, the team leader for Ngabo Youth Friendly Service Center and the Gang Peace Ambassador. Ngabo Youth Friendly Service Center looks at empowering and transforming ghetto communities into prudent, productive communities that can ably contribute to the development of the country, Uganda. Tonight we are discussing issues to do with menstrual hygiene management in the ghetto space. And when you look at the word ghetto, it's different from the word slum. Slums these are just communities described with the structure setup of their households and everything. But when you look at ghetto communities, we look at the structure setup and at the same time the mindset, the attitude of the individuals living in those communities. And and when you compare the two, you realize that they are quite different. And in the ghetto space, you're going to realize that the individuals living in such communities, these are individuals that survive for a day. These are individuals that live under a lot of insecurity. These are individuals that there is a lot of drug abuse, there is a lot of poor hygiene and sanitation, there is a lot of flooding whenever it rains and the likes. So you're going to find that it's critical to discuss these issues at this note in line with the ghetto communities. Imagine in a situation where it overfloods, and there are girls, there are young ladies in these communities that live for a day and they can't able to contribute and or afford to buy reusable sanitary pads all the time. And the option is, how can they have the other kind of pads that can take them throughout the year? Because they can't buy monthly when they have costs of living, like paying accommodation, paying for food and clothing, those basic necessities, and upon they are unemployed. So you realize that more of these communities, you realize you find a girl age of 14, 15, and she only has two knickers for a year. So a person who can have two knickers for a year, do you think can able afford to have sanitary pads every month? What happens then? That's why many of them opt for being pregnant than going through the suffocation of the menstrual cycle. I remember a community last year, we did a lot of work around menstrual hygiene management, and we distributed over 1,000 reusable sanitary pads to a certain community. But when we were distributing these communities, we were able telling us, yes, you're giving us the pads, but we don't have the knickers, the undergarments. How are we going to be able to utilize them? So we had to buy even the knickers for them, because they can't afford. Because these people, yes, they would love so much to manage, but there are circumstances like poverty. And just imagine within the city, Kampala. Then guess what happens in the villages, in those communities that can't access even a reusable sanitary pad? What happens? So that's why we have high rates of STIs in such spaces. Then let us take a scenario of when it rains. All the dirt comes up. These are households that young people live in, and they get flooded with dirty water, fish water, and all that. Even the sewage lines, they use the same opportunity to pour out, and all this waste collects through or within this household of this young person. Then at the end of the day, you're going to realize cholera and all those other diseases. And then what happens to the private parts in cases where they can't afford clean water? When we are zeroing down to discussing issues of menstrual hygiene management, ladies and gentlemen, we need to touch base to the primary health care. How do we ensure that these communities have access to clean water? How do we ensure that these communities have access to reusable sanitary pads? How do we ensure that these communities can ably afford the basic needs of man? Can we train these young individuals who have not been able to get a chance to continue with school to have hands-on skills for them to be able to live and have an alternative in life? Can we ensure that there are favorable policies to tap and train these young people to give them room to venture into prudent work?